Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in the video today. Today we're going to be talking about more news for the Houston Rockets, as today it was announced by Bleacher Report that the Houston Rockets are all in on James Harden in free agency, which is very exciting as a Rockets fan. As a Rockets fan, I'll be honest, I've kind of missed James Harden basketball in Houston. If he comes back, I will say I want it to be different than it was before. This is a way different time than it was back when James played in Houston before. Back when James played in Houston, before he got traded, James, this was a team that would fight for championships every season. They never really got to what they wanted every season. They got one game away from making it to the finals one year, and one year they lost in the second round. A lot of second round loses. They lost in the second round of the Lakers, second round of the Warriors, Western Conference Finals to the second Western Conference Finals of the Warriors. What else did they lose? They lost a lot. They lost second round of the Spurs, and then just list goes on. A lot of bad playoff losses, but the Rockets, they were competing for a championship back then. But James, he was the number one guy. And I think James, he's a great player. And I think I like the player he's turned into in Philly. And that's the player I want coming to Houston. I don't want the old James coming back. If you look at James, he's a different player than he was before he left Houston. When he left Houston, the ball was in his hands 24/7. If you're up 3 and you need somebody to take the last shot to try to give you the win. James Harden's taking a step back 3 here. James, you relied on James Harden every night as a Rockets fan or the Rockets. It was James Harden every night. Even when we brought in Chris Paul, even when we brought in Russell Westbrook. And Russell Westbrook did a hell of a job in Houston. And there was a minute where, okay, are the Rockets going to pick Westbrook over Harden? Because there was a time when the Rockets traded Capella and the Rockets opened up space in the paint, and Westbrook just became a beast in the paint. And he was scoring every game. He was scoring 30. He was averaging, I think, 27. For a couple weeks. He was going crazy to the point where the Rockets traded Capella to the Hawks to when the NBA season got shut down. From that timeline, Russell Westbrook was a different player for the Houston Rockets. When the bubble started, I will say Westbrook, he wasn't that great. He was okay in the bubble. He wasn't that great though. But from when Capella got traded to when the NBA got shut down because of he was a different guy. He was like MVP Westbrook, and you never really saw that where Harden wasn't number one. And that from that timeline, Westbrook was the number one in Houston. But if James comes back to Houston, I think he needs to be the guy that he is in Philly right now. You'll see James in Houston, he used to, average 30 a night. What was that, 29, 30 straight games with 30 points? I don't want that type of player. And I know that sounds crazy, but I want the type of player he is in Philly right now, where he could definitely go out and get you 25 to 30 points a night. But he's passing the ball more. He's making the guys around him in Philly better. The ball movement that him and Joel have together is unbelievable. And Joel has the ball in his hands a lot, which, takes Harden's points away a little bit. And, Maxey, he's unbelievable. Harden and him have a lot of chemistry. Harden is just he's the middle guy in that Philly offense. And I really think he puts them all together. So does Embiid, but, you'll see him go get 27 points and 8-9 assists. Then the next night you'll see him drop 12 points and 18 assists. So I will like that type of James Harden player where he's more of a team guy than he is a player guy. And if we need him to just go absolutely off, then that's what we get from him, right? But we'll see what happens, and I think the Rockets are going to definitely have some interest in James Harden. And he has gone a little bit up in age the last couple of years since he hasn't been in Houston. And I think we'll just see what happens with James. I mean, you're going to have to pay him some money, which I think is okay at this point because the Rockets have a lot of money to spend. But yeah, I think it's worth it for the Rockets. I think he'd be he'd put everybody together. I think him and Jalen would have some good. I think him and Jalen would have some decent chemistry. I honestly do think him and Alp moving the ball together would kind of be like him and Joel Embiid. Alp is not as much as freaky athlete as Embiid is. Embiid is a better shooter. He's a little bit of a better. He's a little bit better than Alp in the paint. Alp's a better passer though, but I think him and Alp would work the ball well together. Then also he'd be able to put the ball in Jabari's hands on a bunch of catch and shoots, which I think Harden on the court would make Jabari a better player. I think Harden would be able to swing it a lot to Jabari. I think Jabari would get a lot of more catch and shoot opportunities with Harden on the court with the Rockets. And then possibly if you add Wembanyama to the table with the Rockets, you got Harden at the point running things for the Rockets, which is something he really didn't do before. Since I started watching the Rockets, I started watching the Rockets in 16-17. I started watching the Rockets in 16-17. Back then, Pat Bev was the point guard. Harden, he was more of like the point guard than Beverly was, but he was listed as a shooting guard. Then 2000. Then the next year, Chris Paul. The next 2 seasons, Harden was more of a shooting guard those 2 seasons. And Westbrook, he comes in. Harden's a shooting guard. Then his next season with Kyrie, he was the shooting guard. But there was a time in Brooklyn I think Kyrie missed some games due to injury, and then the next year Kyrie was not allowed to play the home games due to COVID. So Harden, that's where he started to transition more to point guard. Then he goes to Philly. That's where he's transitioned more to the point guard position. I know Maxi's listed as the point guard, but I think Harden does a lot of more point guard like stuff for Philly than Maxi does. And I think Harden at the point, Jalen at the 3, and then Jalen at the 2. My bad. Jabari at the 3, Wembanyama at the 4. And then at the 5, Alp. I think that's a great team. And then the question is, do you keep KPJ? I think there is a chance if James Harden and Wembanyama come to the Rockets, KPJ could get traded. But I would like KPJ to stay on the Rockets if James Harden's coming on a board. Because if you look at this, James Harden's not going to be here for long. He's 33 or 32, whatever he is. He doesn't have a lot of time left. If he comes here, he's going to be here for about 3 or 4 years maybe. So in that case, I think him and KPJ would be nice together. They're not going to be on the court a lot. Maybe KPJ is going to be a guy who touches the floor when Harden's out, when Harden's off the floor. But I think him and KPJ, when KPJ's at the 2, I think KPJ and Harden have a lot of similarities to their game. They went to the same college. I think Harden could teach some stuff to KPJ. So what I'm ultimately assessing is I think that Harden, I think he'd be great for the Rockets. I think he needs to be a mentor, not a leader. Obviously, he's going to be one of the best players on this Rockets team if he comes here. But what Harden needs to do is be a mentor to the young guys like Wemby, Sengun. Maybe Wemby, just if the Rockets bring him in. Possibly Wemby, Alp, Jabari, Jalen, and possibly KPJ if he stays. He needs to be a mentor, and Tari Eason if you want to just bring in everybody. He needs to be a mentor to those 6 young guys or those 5 young guys, how many ever players I just listed. And then he needs to be that veteran to jump in and play some good basketball with those guys. I'm all in for the Rockets bringing in James Harden, but like I said, I think he needs to be more of a mentor than he was in Houston. He was the leader. This was his team. But this isn't his team anymore if he comes back. There are other guys that are, more into the future for the Rockets. You got Wemby, Jalen, if we could draft Wemby. These guys are set up for the future, but Harden is making them have a better chance to win as they're so young. So I think that I'm all in for it. We'll see if James is down to come back to Houston. I think he is. Not only just, wanted to be back in this city. I know people make all the jokes. I've made the jokes about, he wants to come back to the strip clubs and stuff. But, he wants to be back at the clubs. But honestly, I will say this. I think he misses, playing for the Rockets. I think he probably misses a little bit of the fans because the fans were awesome to him. I mean, the loyalty that these fans had to James was unbelievable. I mean, every night, everybody came for James every night, and I think he sort of probably misses the fans and misses the environment at Toyota Center every night, every 41 games per season, and we'll see what happens. I think there's a chance it happens, and I'm down for it. I will say I do think it depends on what happens with the draft, because if the Rockets get two and they don't get one, then they're probably going to want to draft Scoot Henderson. So would you still want to be interested in signing James Harden if you had Scoot Henderson is my question. Because Scoot Henderson, he's a point guard. Do you feel comfortable moving Jalen Green to the 3 and putting in James Harden at the 2? So here was what it would look if you had Scoot Henderson. You'd have Scoot Henderson at the 1. You have James Harden at the 2. Jalen at the 3. Jabari at the 4, and Alpi at the 5. That's definitely realistic. That could happen. That is a decent. I think it'd be a transition for Jalen Green, but I think he could do it. I think he could move to that small forward position. It'd be a transition for him. But James Harden moves to that casual position. He's played the most of his career at shooting guard. You get a top prospect in Scoot Henderson, and you move Jalen to the 3 and have Jabari at 4 and Sengun at 5. Just throwing out all the possibilities for the Rockets there. But we shall see what happens with the Rockets. You guys have more thoughts on the Rockets potentially signing James Harden free agency. And that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out. Go Rockets.